But I want to straight up jump into something that you've been very vocal about. A lot of us have been vocal about, and the term esports in India, especially, being used very loosely. And apparently, some fantasy league wants to call them esports. What's your take on that?
Oh man, that got messy, right? Like, it's a very murky situation right now when it comes to like we have a few companies out there who do fantasy cricket and fantasy sports, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You have that in Western countries as well. You have that in the rest of the world as well, and that's all fine and dandy. I have nothing against that. You can do all of that. And they define it legally. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I do believe they define it legally as skill-based gaming, right? And that's when it starts. Like if you have two Venn diagrams, one is esports, like video games, and one is like the fantasy gaming. That's when you use the word gaming, is when there's an intersection point, right? And that's when things get a little confusing. And let's be real, a lot of people in power in our country, a lot of the bureaucrats and everyone, they don't really know about the differentiation between what's a video game, what's an esport. They don't care. They don't know. They won't try and educate themselves for it. Forget them. Like even in Sweden, for example, which is a much more developed country when it comes to esports, even they're having problems with the Dota 2 International and even the CS:GO Major. Probably not happening in Sweden because they're not acknowledging esports as sports. So it's not an India only problem. It's a worldwide problem, right? But coming back to the topic at hand, let's see a few articles from a few advertisements, paper advertisements from a couple of big companies, one in particular, where they were advertising themselves as an esports app, which is, look, in my humble opinion, I think it's bullshit, right? They might have the legal rights because of how murky it is, right? But at the same time, it is very, in my opinion, very scummy, because inadvertently, what's happening here is they are associating, in the minds of a lot of people, esports with fantasy betting, which is not esports. It's a completely different thing altogether. And they're trying to, because esports is the cool word of the 2020s, right? It's a cool new thing happening right now. So everyone wants to jump onto the esports bandwagon. So they want to jump onto it, and they want to be like, okay, if we jump onto the esports bandwagon, it kind of legitimizes us more, right? Even though it's already legitimate. What worries me is if, for whatever reason, because the government likes banning everything, they wanted to ban crypto, they want to ban this, they want to ban half my favorite porno sites. It's a very sad state of affairs right now in this country, okay? But the thing is, if they decide that gambling is bad, or sports, fantasy sports, whatever, fantasy sports is bad, and they want to ban that, there is a real possibility they can be like, oh, we ban all gaming/esports.
Yep.
So other esports, like an industry which is so important to all of us here, and a lot of people as well, suddenly they get struck with the ban hammer for no fault of ours, just because of association with a different industry which operates in a little bit more legally murky, state, so to speak. So I feel look, I can't really blame them too much, because obviously they're doing the job, trying to legitimize themselves. Also, at the same time, there's no one higher up in the government who's trying to really define what esports is, right? There's no definition. And any body, like any unofficial body in the past 10 years who ever tried to be like, we're the esports official authority limited, the sole king of esports in India, it's always been some asshole trying to make a quick buck. So there doesn't seem to be any quite like easy solution to this conundrum right now.